Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the water meeting. And we are going to start at 3:02 p.m. And let me just get the agenda here. Okay, so call to order at 3:02, and number 3, approval of the agenda is circulated. Be it resolved that the agenda for September 21st, 2022 meeting of the Grafton Communal Water System Committee be approved as circulated. Could I have a mover, please? Mike, a seconder. Grit? All in favor? Passed. Okay. Approval of the minutes of June 22nd. Be it resolved that the minutes of June 22nd, 2022 Grafton Communal Water Committee meeting be approved. Can I have a mover, please? Grit and John Logo. All in favor? Passed. Okay. And business arising from the previous minutes. So I'll just read this through. I was talking to Yolanda. It's basically, this is an update for the members that aren't on council, but at our last water meeting, we had a lot of time-sensitive issues that had to come up before council. So update recommendations from the Grafton Communal Water Committee meeting of June 22nd, taken to council for approval on July 7th and the 21st. The council report from Pat Kemp, acting clerk, dated July 7th, 2022, read the Grafton drinking water system. It was moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Mike Phillip, that be it resolved that the council of the township of Alnwick-Holmlin received the report from the acting clerk dated July 7th, 2022 regarding the Grafton drinking water system, and further that council approved the following recommendations. The first one was council report from Pat Kemp, acting clerk, dated July 7th, 2022. Read the quotations received for paving at the Grafton Pump House. It was moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherry Gibson. Be it resolved that the council of the township of A&H approve the quotation from Murphy Paving, Inc. in the amount of $9,800 plus taxes for the excavating and repaving of the truck fill lane at the Grafton Pump House, and that was carried. The third one was council report from Pat Kemp, dated July 21st, 2022. Read the dehumidifiers at the Grafton Water Treatment Plant. That was also moved by me and seconded by Councillor Mike Phillip. Be it resolved that the council of the township of A&H approve the Lakefront Utility Services, Inc. purchasing and installing 2 dehumidifiers for the Grafton Water Treatment Plant at a cost of $3,842. And further that the cost of the humidifiers, that should be dehumidifiers, right?
Yeah.
The cost of the dehumidifiers be taken from the capital reserves, and further that the report from the acting clerk dated July 21st, 2022 regarding the purchase and installation of 2 dehumidifiers for the Grafton Water Treatment Plant be received and filed, and that was also carried. And water modeling and development, I think that is, who is looking after that, Yolanda? Adam? Or was it Larry that wanted that on added to the business horizon?
I believe Adam asked that that item be added as a discussion item. Adam, if you wanted to maybe talk about that, if you like.
You're muted.
Is that any better?
Nope. Yeah,
there we go.
Alrighty. Yeah, we asked that had been added. We've still had a few questions coming through from A&H staff regarding water modeling and cost and future development. And we've tabled with the committee the approximate cost regarding implementing a water model and the idea of moving forward with development. There's been questions about moving forward with development from staff without a water model at current, and we just thought that we would include that again, Larry and I, to touch base and say that water modeling and development. We've provided an estimated cost. As far as SEMA, it was $30,000 to $50,000 to move forward with that. And at current, while we do have a rated capacity within the treatment plant there, the pump house, we cannot guarantee the delivery of any set flow at any future development within the system without knowledge of the hydrodynamics. And unfortunately, Larry and I aren't engineers with that expertise. So we would, to get an answer for that, we would have to provide, we would have to have a water model in place.
Any questions for Adam? I would have a question, Adam, about that. So we had come to council just last week, and I believe there's one coming tomorrow with Grafton Heights. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. So when these developers are proposing that they're going to be using, well, they're using their own septic, but they're going to be using water from the system. So we should be looking at the developers paying for that then, I guess, right? For a water modeling, or like, is it the first developer that comes up that wants to hook up 12 houses that has to pay for it? Or how do we go about making sure that, you know, in the hamlet where they're going to do construction and add certain houses, that they're going to be covered to have enough flow?
Maybe I can answer that one, Adam. What we did here in Coburg was, when I first came here 8 years ago, that we set up a water model. So we paid for the initial water model, and now that anybody wants to hook up into our system, they will give them a price to run it through the water model. The water model, what they got to do is they got to submit design criteria to us. They're gonna have to show us basically the pipes in the ground and what their engineers think it is, and then we'll put it through the water model. And then the water model will in turn go through it. And then in some cases, we've actually changed the size of the piping from 800 to 300 because of fire flows. And that's what the water model does. It makes sure that you have adequate water supply to the developments. But in this cost all goes back on the developer.
So Larry, is it like a prorated one? So if we have like 2 developments I can think of right now that are coming up probably in a year or so, right? Where when it gets to that, how do they do it? How do they, if it's going to cost us $35,000, how do you recoup your money? Like,
well, if let's say it costs us $35,000 to build the water model with the existing system we have with the hydrants and the sizes of the mains and all that, what you'll do is when let's say developer A comes and he wants to develop, he wants to do 15 lots or 20 lots. He'll put up and forward his design. We'll take that design and we'll put it through the water model. There will be a cost associated to that from whoever is looking after the water model. They'll say for developer A, it's going to cost you $10,000. So he pays the $10,000. You do a report. It says you can build those 15 houses. Then developer B comes on, and then already the water model has development A into it. So now you're starting to change things. So he's going to look at it and says, okay, developer B, you want 25 houses? It's $15,000 or it's $8,000, depending on where it is. And that's the same thing. You will recoup your money over a period of time.
okay.
So can I ask the question then? So
yeah,
Go ahead,
the ones
John.
that right now are probably attached to one, or very well could be, but there could be another one, instead of being on the east side of the village, could be on the northwest side of the village.
Yeah.
And that'll be an entirely different, could be different because you could have different pipes going to either one. Is that correct?
Well, the whole thing is that when you do the water model of the existing system as it is, and let's say the 2 A and B developers are within the network of the infrastructure,
Yep.
You'll work that. But let's say another developer comes and says, I want to do 40 lots and I want to do it to the east side of your system, right? So
Yep.
there again, that changes everything, because you got to remember, he's going to take water, what's already been allocated to this system. So you're going to lose that. So there's a development cost to that. And then he would have to increase all the piping that would have to get to be there. Let's say somebody wants to build beyond the tracks. So they would have to develop all that, put the core jacking under the tracks, get all those approvals, spend all that money. And then let's say the system doesn't handle it and a water tower has to be built or storage has to be built. That is part of the developer.
Okay.
That he would have to pay for it to ensure that it stays within that. Then also things change, like the permit to take water. Like Bruce knows, you can only take so much water. And then if you have an increase, then you have to do all those processes.
Okay,
so a water model actually is good for council because it controls development to where you want it, instead of somebody coming and saying, hey, I want to do this on this side of the street or that on that side of the street. You have control over it to say, well, we have this area.
Yeah. Grit, you had a question?
A couple of comments and then, ultimately a question. Number one, there's in the hamlet of Grafton, there is limited development that can happen anyways, just based on the boundaries. We know of 4, and with the Grafton Heights, that's 5. And I know that our planner is aware of these potential developments. And when I talked with Jennifer, this is going to be, I think that's last year already, when she first came out with the report that she prepared about the potential developments coming forward. Do you all remember that? It was a good one, actually, because it didn't mention names, but it did dispel the rumors that were being told out in the public so that people had an idea that things were coming forward. At that time, she said that she had approached these developers, asking them if they wanted to go together on doing this water modeling study. So apparently the 3 involved wanted to do it on their own because they are probably smaller number of houses. But for example, the big one that's going in on the old Prentice farm, south of Highway 2 and east of Old Danforth and Station Road, that's going to be a large development. I'm not talking about that 12 lot proposed one that just came forward, but there's a much larger development that could potentially have 40, 50 possible houses in there. So that developer would obviously be on the hook for paying more of it. So I still think that there should be some attempt made to try to bring these developers together to look at this water modeling study up front, because they all have the intention of developing. And the reason I say that is because we are a small township, and to foot the bill up front and then recoup it over time is going to cost money in the long run. So just something I think that needs to be perhaps thought about.
And did you have a question or?
Well, it's the thing is that, okay, so should we be approaching our planner and asking her to reach out to the developers to see if they're willing to fulfill their portion of the water modeling study, because they're the ones that want to develop here?
Well, I would say I agree 100%, is that I want to make sure that the taxpayers aren't on the hook for this, right? The developers should be paying the whole thing. And I guess, Larry, from what you said, it almost sounded like the first one in gets in, right? So if I have 10 houses and I'm doing them, and I get the water modeling in, then they add that to the model. And then if John comes later with 30 houses, then he's going to the revised water modeling that has the 10 on there, right? So yes, it would probably be wise, as Grit said, if they all knew where they were going and how many houses roughly in that, whether or not it can accept all 4 of them.
Yeah, because you have to allocate water to pieces of property that already exist. So you have to start subtracting that. Like in Coburg here, we have lots of small pockets. You drive around, there's trees. Those are areas that already have been allocated through subdivision agreements that are like 20 years old, but we still have to allocate the water to them because that's what the potential growth is. So when somebody comes new and they want to do more growth, then you got to remember, if you start with 100 cubic meters of water and the town uses 10 and this one uses, then you're starting to get down. You have to make sure that you have enough water to satisfy these subdivisions or these projects that somebody wants to move forward.
We're going to have to look into it because it was mentioned, a lot of us here that was at that meeting a week or so ago saying, oh yeah, the developer is just going to hook up to the water system. That's all. That comment was sort of made. And it's like, well, you don't even know whether or not, you know, there's enough capacity for it, but that's what they're saying, right? Oh, we'll get water from the system.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something. Mike, go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. I just wondered if everyone could make sure that if they're not speaking, that they're on mute. My bandwidth isn't very good today. And so the more people that are on mute, the better the bandwidth is. So if you're not speaking, please just make sure you're on mute. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's something we will have to take to council, and maybe even we have a planning meeting tomorrow that myself and Mike can mention that under notices and that, just to say to Jennifer that as Grit has said, that, you know, she should be, maybe because she talks to all these developers probably on a regular basis more than we would, that she should be mentioning to them that there is going to be a cost, and if they can all band together sort of, then it's going to be probably more helpful in the future. Okay, any other questions for Larry or Adam about the water modeling and development?
I guess my only thought is that what Larry is saying? Because I don't hear that from Lucy. Lucy is saying we have to go out there and find out, do that modeling first, and the water board pays for that. And then after that, they distribute, or not distribute necessarily, say this is how much it's going to cost. Because we don't know whether we're going to get 6. If those 6 pay for the water, or those 5 or 6 that Grit mentions, pay for the study, and the 7th one comes along, does he get it for free? That's my question. Does he get it for free?
Yeah, I agree. That's why I said I'll bring it up at council tomorrow, me and Mike, and we'll go from there. I mean, probably what Larry said is true. Maybe we will have to, you know, budget that or something in next year's budget to say, let's get it done. And then you're going to have to figure out a prorated thing so that, John, we're getting the money back, right? We want to make sure that are we prorating it on the 6th? And like you said, we've paid it off. And then when number 7 comes, it's already paid off. I mean, I'd like to make a profit on it if we could, but go ahead, Grit.
Yeah, well, that's...
Go ahead.
I would think Larry's saying that's going to, no matter whether you get the 6th or the 16th or the whatever, that they're all going to have to pay for the portion of that modeling charge.
Larry, you were going to comment, and then I'll get you, Grit.
Okay.
My comment is that if the Hamlet does the water modeling, you own it. In the end, you own it. Then you can charge this thing there. If 5 of us go into on this water modeling and John wants to join in after, then you already have partners in it. What you're trying to sell to the developers is, we got a water model. You give us your design, and we'll see if it matches the water model. And if it doesn't, the water model is going to say, this is what you have to do to make sure that your subdivision will fit in within our water model.
So just before I give it to Grit, hold on, Grit. So Larry, what happens then? How did Coburg get their money back? Like, are they waiting for years and years and years to finally get their, if it was $30,000 to get that back? Or they must be, because if in the future another developer comes on board, and like, how do you prorate to say those 4 people that we know of, like Grit said, are they paying 20 out of the 30 and we're leaving 10 back, and we're hoping that in the future that we, like, how do we know when we own the water modeling what to charge?
Well, that's where it comes in, where you'll have an engineering firm that'll look after the water modeling for you. And then let's say John's coming with a subdivision. He'll present it to the committee or to the engineering firm that's doing the water modeling. They'll sort of look at it and it says, okay, to run this through all the things for max day flow, fire flows, and everything else that you need, it's going to cost $5,000, $8,000 and all that. Then they'll push it through the water model. The water model will say that you may have to upsize or you have to put in extra looping and all that. That's what the water model will do in the end. Here in Cobourg with our water model, because we have so much development, every phase of every developer, he puts his drawings through the water model and he pays for that.
So you sort of didn't answer it, and I still have you, Grit, is so the engineering firm is going to run it through, so there's a cost for them.
Yes.
They might say 5,000. Is some of that to cover for them and some to go towards the original $30,000 principal, or how is that paid off?
That'll be between you guys and the engineering firm, how you want to set that up. And that, so, but there's also a report that's written on this, so that when it comes out, there'll be a written report, and the written report will say, by the way, 10 cubic meters from this 100 cubic meters is allocated to this subdivision.
Okay, great. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have kind of a finite parcel of areas for development anyways. So, for example, this developer that wants to put in the 12 homes right now wants to come in ahead of time so he doesn't have to be part of that water modeling study. That may not be fair to the other ones that do want to come forward. As I say, we already know that there are developers that want to develop in the places we have. And in our development charges report that we just received from Clark Consulting, we only have under 700, between 640 and 700 units left to build in all of Olmec-Haldeman. So never mind just in the Hamlet area. So this is not like we're not like Cobourg, where we have other areas that can be opened up and developed. And below the tracks is not part of the hamlet of Grafton. It's not on the water system. So anything beneath there will have to be paid for by any developer that wants to try and bring water below the tracks. So I think that in this particular instance, we have a chance to be on top of our game and actually work with the developers. And depending on how many units they're looking for is the portion they would pay of the water modeling study up front. It's all part of doing business. They have to do their studies up front anyways before they can go ahead with their development. So why should we be picking up the tab at this point in time when we're already strapped for money with what's been going on with our well number 1, et cetera. So that's just my input.
Okay, me and Mike will take it to council tomorrow at the planning, and then we'll have some feedback to bring back for the October meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move to financial reports. So Nicole's not here, but be it resolved that the budget to actual to July 31st, 2022 and the budget to actual to August 31st, 2022 be received and filed. Can I have a mover, please? John Logo, second. Mike? Is there any questions? If anybody's got any, maybe we could hold off until the next meeting, unless it's really urgent. John, go ahead. You're muted, John. Still muted. Still muted.
Thank
yeah.
You.
There you go.
Thank you. I won't bother with them all, but just line 72005 to 72015, which is all Lucy stuff, and that's on the expense report. We've spent $123,000 if I add all of them up year to date. But if I go to the far column, which is the total budget for the year is 106,000. So if I read that correctly, after the end of August, we are already over the total budget by $19,000.
Do you want to comment on that, Larry?
Yeah. You got to remember that there was no capital expenditure line item for the replacement of the header pipe in the water treatment plant. So when we build it back to use, we build it through our normal process, and then Nicole should have been putting it to a water capital number to cover that cost, because that project started back in 2020 to replace
Okay.
the water header. So that I would say 90% of all that money goes to the header.
So Larry, will you speak to Nicole and make sure that you can address it with her, that the cost for the header, that it gets allocated in the separate account so we can keep it separate?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll talk to her. We'll get that straightened out.
Grit, go ahead, Grit.
I just had one concern regarding our residential customers and our bulk water customers. We are basically down substantially in how much revenue we should have brought in by now. And I guess it's because we've had a wetter summer, but that is quite a substantial difference in water revenue. So I don't know if anyone can actually comment on that.
Larry or Adam, would you guys?
I'll comment there, Mr. Chair. It's basically, if you remember, is that you guys bill every 2 months. So you're going to be, at least depending on when this report was done and when the billing period actually is, you're going to miss that. So you might, if you get it, if this goes out just before the billing period, then you won't get it for like another meeting or a meeting and a half beyond that to get the true number. You know, and we did suggest at one time there was monthly billing. And it was said no, that everybody was happy with the bi-monthly billing. So, and then as far as the bulk water, there again, that's all driven by how hot it is and how warm it is. Last year was really hot. We sold a lot of water. But you guys sold a lot of water.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it's something great we can keep an eye on just to keep monitoring. Okay, can I, all in favor that it be received and filed? Carried. Okay, now we'll move on to number 7, projects. Current updates. The technical memorandum from Bruce Highcamp, Geocamp Limited, dated August 15th, 2022, re Grafton monitoring wells and BTEX detection update regarding June 2022 sampling. Be it resolved that the technical memorandum from Bruce Highcamp, Geocamp Limited, dated August 15th, 2022, re Grafton monitoring wells and BTEX detection update regarding the June 2022 sampling be received and filed. Can I have a mover, please? Grit, seconder. John, Logo. Go ahead, Bruce, the floor is yours.
Okay, I think everybody's aware that back in December 2020, we had a BTEX detection at one of the Sentinel wells. The Sentinel wells are located halfway between the production wells and the closed landfill. The BTEX detection was persistent after like 14 samples. So we've had various meetings and we've bumped up the monitoring to quarterly. And the last time I went out was June at that point, but I actually did go out this week too. But we seem to be heading in the right direction. We had the BTEX detection, made some improvements, still nothing, but we've turned the corner, and the last 2 samples have been non-detect. So hopefully September and December are non-detect as well, and we can return to our normal sampling program of annual samples. Why is it gone away? I don't know, because I don't even know. I'm not even sure why we had the problem. Maybe we made some improvements to the wells, or the monitoring well, gaskets. We put some bentonite sealant to keep any surface, water getting in. Maybe that just slug of surface water made its way through and is now gone. But in a nutshell, or to summarize, we've got non-detect right now, and I'm crossing my fingers for the next 2 samples.
Any questions for Bruce? Nothing, he got off easy.
Okay.
Okay, all in
Nothing to
favor?
report. Yeah.
All in favor of his report being received and filed? Passed. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, correspondence from Larry. Grafton Drinking Water System 2022 Operation Report. Reporting period June to August 2022. Be it resolved that the correspondence from Larry Sprica, Lucy, Grafton Drinking Water System 2022 Operations Report. Reporting period June to August 2022 be received and filed, and further that the report be forwarded to the Council of the Township of ANH. Can I have a mover, please? John Logo, seconder. Grit. Go ahead, Larry, it's all yours. You're muted, Larry.
There. Just gonna find it here. My package. Sorry about that. I actually don't see it here.
It was the addendum that was sent out on Monday.
Ah, I didn't print that. Adam, do you have that?
I have it. I can tackle it if you'd prefer.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Flows pretty typical for treated water summary. At the water treatment plant, as per direction from the committee, Murphy Paving has undertaken the excavation and rebedding of the truck fill station. Instructions from Murphy's, that was, we had a rain day and it ended up on the 25th of July. Murphy's has instructed us that the longer it sits, the better quality the bedding will end up being. He has a target of late September, early October to finish the paving, and we'll follow up when we need to schedule that to ensure that it has minimal impact on bulk water customers. We've also done some maintenance on the roof drain there to dig in some big O and route the roof drain off and away from the property so that it won't affect our truck fill area in the future. The dehumidifiers are installed and running, and they've made significant improvements to humidity levels within the water plant at the height of the summer where it is worst. So that's been effective. And we've completed annual third-party calibrations for instrumentation and flow meters during June. Flushing and valve exercising we completed back in May. And we've done 2 service repairs, one 402 Brimley Road South, and a second service repair at 133 Canning Factory Road. They're fairly large, wet conditions. The St. Mary's Cemetery service, during our last committee meeting, we received the instruction that we would ask St. Mary's if they would prefer to decommission where the township bore the cost, or that we would replace the service to an upset limit of $3,000 with excess cost to be borne by the cemetery board. I've had conversations with 4 board members. To date, I have not received an answer on that. However, I have been contacted by Tom Bain of Bain Construction. He has informed me that he personally will complete the work and bear any cost over and above the upset limit personally. And he's scheduled that for just after Thanksgiving. He understands that the conditions there are difficult, particularly in wet, but as he's going to bear any costs that are over and above, I really can't question his timing. So we can expect that to be completed just after Thanksgiving, and they will have a brand new service run out from the main We have sent the annual summary reports along. The internal audit, I believe, is complete. Permit to take water was forwarded. BTEX, we've been through all of that. And Paul Miller, MOE P, he's undertaken a announced detailed compliance inspection, and that is underway. His first visit was August 31st, 2022.
Okay, just before I take questions, so I need clarification, Adam. I believe at the last meeting when we talked about St. Mary's, and the other members can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we agreed that, or a motion was made that if they wanted to terminate the service, that we would pay the $3,000 cost to terminate it, and then that's it. But if they wanted to fix it and have the service or whatever, the cost was going to be borne by them. I guess I'm hearing from you that they're thinking that the $3,000 can go towards the replacing it or fixing it. Am I hearing right, or am I?
To tell you the truth, I was under that impression as well.
So I'm not sure. I did read it somewhere today. Maybe Pat, you could show me, or Yolanda, where we talked about it. Was it in the previous minutes?
Yes.
And trying to find it. The actual.
There also is on page 17, the resolution that came out of council.
Okay, 17. And yeah, it says, Troy Gilmore and Adam approached St. Mary's to advise that Lucy will decommission the water service at St. Mary's at the cost of approximately $3,000. And if St. Mary's wants to have the service repaired, that cost of the repair will be St. Mary's. So we might want to touch base with them, Adam, to say, listen, there's no $3,000 that we were going to decommission it that goes towards the repair. If they want to repair it, then they got to pay the whole bill, right?
Okay.
Just so that, you know, no decision's been made, but they're sure of that. And I don't know if anybody on the committee wants to make a comment about that. If we are all thinking that's exactly what we talked about, or go ahead, Mike.
Yes, I'll confirm that that's how I interpreted it. I interpreted it the same way that you read it out. And so that's my understanding. Thank you.
Okay.
It's my understanding, Mr. Chair, that the $3,000 has to be spent by the township to fix that. Is that correct? To decommission.
No, and Adam, you can comment. I thought it was $3,000 to decommission it. If they didn't want the water, John, it would cost us $3,000, and we would do whatever Adam had to do or whatever and seal it off, and it was done forever. That's it. But if they wanted to repair it, the whole cost is theirs. So if they're deciding that they want water, they're paying the whole thing, and we're out of it. Is that right, Adam, or am I off base?
I'm not entirely sure. The impression that I got was that we would be in for $3,000 either way, but I may have been mistaken.
Britt, go ahead.
I'm going to read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Water Committee recommend that Troy Gilmore, CAO, and Adam Taggart, Lucy, approach St. Mary's Cemetery to advise that Lucy will decommission the water service at St. Mary's at the Water Committee's cost of approximately $3,000. And further, that if St. Mary's Cemetery want to have the water service repaired, that the cost of the repair will be at St. Mary's cost. That's fairly clear.
Yeah. So you might have to go back to the madam and say, listen, you know, maybe so that there's no misunderstanding. If they want us to decommission it, we will, and we'll pay for it. But if they're looking at, they want to continue the water there and they want to get it repaired, it's going to be at the full cost that they have to bear.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that was it for Lucy. Is there any other questions for Larry or Adam? Larry got off real easy, but go ahead, John.
You said there was a couple of repairs down that had to be done. I'm just wondering, I remember we had to do a few repairs a couple of years ago and they were very expensive, like $6,000 or $7,000 or more. Are those these type of repairs or these small ones?
The repair at 402 Brimley was fairly simple. Simple excavation, simple backfill and patch. 133 Canning Factory Road, the service repair was extensive. The service from the main to the curb stop, and on Canning Factory Road, the main is to the north and the customer is to the south side of the road. Wet conditions, complete replacement of the service from main to curb stop was necessitated. The entire service was corroded and a significant amount of water was being lost throughout it. But yes, it was a fairly extensive service repair.
Okay, just so we know. And we don't budget for, I don't think, any of that, do we?
Yeah, there is a budget line item for service repairs.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah.
And how much is that, you know?
Not off the top of my head, John.
Well, if you don't know, that's. You're muted, Larry.
I'm still reading. I'm talking to myself. I mean, I'm answering myself too. The line item 72,013. We have a total budget of 13,000 for water mains and service maintenance.
That might cover it.
Okay, so the correspondence from Larry, and we had a mover and a seconder, all in favor of receiving and filing and forwarding to the council. Passed. Okay. Number 8, capital items, projects. Be it resolved that the draft request for proposal, RFP number 02-2022, re the Grafton Water Supply Upgrades Production Well, PW1 replacement be received and further direction required. Pat, that's your expertise. What are we? I think you're muted, Pat. Oh, we don't hear you. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
I was going to introduce Grant. Grant has been assisting us with the tender for the well replacement, and I should have done it earlier. So welcome, Grant. And I was going to ask if he would speak to it.
Okay, go ahead, Grant.
Sure. I'm not sure what's the best here if I just sort of summarize what's in it. I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to look at it or not. It's attached at the back of the minutes there. It's fairly comprehensive. I'll just sort of describe generally the highlights, and I'll note maybe a couple of key sort of project or contractual things we should be aware of. So basically what I put together between Bruce and I was it's a request for proposals, which describes the terms of reference and scope of work for an engineering company to come in and do the complete engineering services to drill and test a new well to replace pumping well 1, and then connect it into the plant and integrate it into the plant and put it actually into service. So the ultimate objective of the project is to establish a second well for the Grafton system. Just because right now we've been running only on pumping well PW1 for many, many years. So it's basically to establish a replacement well for pumping well 1. So you have 2 sources in case one of them's down or whatever. What we did was we set this up. It's sort of similar to other requests for proposals that we've seen for consulting engineering services. And we broke the project down into a number of steps, starting basically from the beginning, which would be to review a lot of the background information. So because it'll probably be a consultant that may not potentially be familiar with Grafton's water system. And in the first few steps, we broke it down into a total of 15 tasks, basically. So the first few were to review the background information on the system, get familiar with it. And then the initial part would be the hydrogeological part, which would be to support the drilling of the well, testing of the well, and to confirm that the well is going to be suitable in terms of the capacity of the well and the water quality, that it could be used as a new water source for the township. And then assuming that the well is successful, and there is always, when you're drilling a new well, there's an element of risk, like it's not guaranteed it's necessarily going to be a successful well. I mean, we have that situation now where we have the 2 wells and they're close together, and yet the quality is very different. So we're hoping that basically the location where we're looking at drilling the well, and we have in the RFP, we included a map there, is somewhere between PW2, which is the one to the west, and the existing monitoring wells that Bruce had mentioned, which are down on Edwardson Road over towards the MRF. So it would be drilled somewhere on township property. The township owns a large property there from the plant, basically down to Edwardson to the south, up to Cranberry Lake to the north, and all the way over to the MRF to the west. So it would be somewhere in the bush there between your existing pumping well 1 and probably the Edwardson wells. And I think, and Bruce and I talked about that, and Bruce sort of has some idea of probably, a suitable location where there'd, be a chance of a successful well there. So that's sort of like the first phase of the project. And then the next phase would get more into the direct kind of technical civil engineering part of it, where we would have to put a new well pump into the well, dig a trench from the plant, and install a new raw water supply line from the well into the plant. And then probably in that same trench or very near, you'd have to run power cables from the plant out to the well. And then once the water's brought into the plant, and in the plant, there is a connection, I believe, for like a 3rd well. Right now, there's connections coming into the plant for wells 1 and 2. And I think there's a 3rd connection in there. Am I right, Larry? Like there's a stub in there for a 3rd well.
Yes,
so,
there is, Grant, yeah.
Yeah, so there's some work to do within the plant itself, just with some piping and valves and a flow meter and some instrumentation to physically connect and integrate it into the plant. And I think that can probably be done like within the existing plant. I don't think you'd have to expand the plant or like knock down a wall and like expand the physical footprint of the building. I think that can probably be physically done within there, just with some modifications of the piping. That would be part of the project, mind you. And then like the plant runs on a SCADA system, so there'd be some modifications with the electronic controls on the SCADA system to integrate the other well with like the level logger for the well and the flow from the well. The actual operation of the plant will basically be the same. It'll like that part won't change in terms of how the water is treated or stored or pumped. All of those things will be the same. So we broke all that down into several steps, and we included like sort of, we wanted to make this sort of all inclusive basically to achieve the ultimate objective, which would be to establish a new water source, 100% complete, connected, and in service into the plant for Grafton. So even after the physical work is done, we included startup and commissioning, any training for Lucy's operators, and then going back once everything's installed and running with the new well to go back and do decommissioning on the existing pumping well 1. And then there's a test well 3, which is like a monitoring well, which is just a few meters away from pumping well 1. And I think we're looking at like properly decommissioning both of those wells. It's usually better to decommission deep unused wells like that, because right now they're, and Bruce may add to this, but generally if you have abandoned or unused wells, it's better to properly plug and seal them, because otherwise it's like an open hole from the ground surface all the way down into your aquifer. And it's a potential pathway maybe for contamination or something to get in there. And then once that's done, then there's some sort of the engineering documentation at the end of the project, which would be to prepare as-built drawings. So the township has that for your records, and to update your plant operations manual to include the new well, so that that documentation is there. There'll probably be some minor revisions to the permit and the license, basically, so all your documentation is in compliance for the Ministry of Environment, which indicates that you now have a new well, which may, I don't know if we'll still call it PW1, maybe we will. The name doesn't really matter, but the documents will have to be updated to reflect that. There'll be a new permit to take water for this. There'll actually be 2 permits. There'll be a temporary one we'll have to get right after the well's drilled when we test it. And that'll just be for, like, the term of the permit might be like a month, like may only test it for a week or so. And then assuming it's okay, then we'll need like a permanent permit to take water for it as well. And then typically with construction projects, there's also like a warranty period. And some municipalities have 12 months. We indicated here 24 months. I know some municipalities are going to 2 years, so we included that in there as well. So that's sort of the physical components and stages of the project. And then if I just look through, is there any questions on that so far? There was a couple other items I'll talk about on the procurement and contractual side, but is there, questions? Just
go ahead. Go.
Yeah. Yeah, when I went through this proposal, the attachments for the maps weren't there, and I really was interested in seeing the maps. So how can we get to see the maps?
Oh, okay. I apologize. They should have.
The attachments weren't there. That we just got the sheet showing what the attachments were to be.
Oh, okay. Like included what I had several schedules. So yeah, I had like the form of tender to fill out, the list of subcontractors, a reference projects. I did not attach like the existing permit and license. Okay, apologize. I've got it open here. I do show.
Yolanda sent out an update.
It's on the last 2 pages. Yeah, what Yolanda sent out though.
On that.
Well, I'm just looking. Yeah. When did you send them out, Yolanda? Because I've looked at the current agenda online and it's not there.
See,
did that come through?
I've got the agenda that I'm looking at, but mine has been the updated one. I did send out.
2 pages.
Yeah, on Monday I did send out the revision, but the RFP was sent out with the original as well, and it should have been the last 2 pages of the agenda.
Okay, but then that obviously it hasn't been updated on the website, because I'm on the website live right now.
Yeah, let me look. I'll look into that.
Okay, no problem. Just it is something that's interesting to see, because my concern was literally that you have no guarantee of having a positive well dug. So the location would obviously be interesting to see where it is, because you don't want it right beside well number 1 now, do we? I'm sure it's not. You guys know what you're doing, so.
No, and the 2, yeah, I could just maybe describe, I guess in words here, with the 2 maps, we had one just generally showing where the village of Grafton is in Northumberland County, just because you may get responses from, consulting engineers across Eastern Ontario, and just so you know where it is. And then the second one was a close-up air photo just of the plant and the wells and the highway, Lyle Street, Cranberry Lake. So it shows where things are. We didn't indicate specifically on here where the well will be drilled. Like that'll probably be like a field decision. Now on in terms of the, like that was sort of the technical parts. In terms of the contractual parts, yeah, you noted about, you know, there's a, you know, an element of risk with whenever we're drilling a new municipal well. So we've included words to that effect in this RFP. Basically, after the well is drilled and tested for its flow rate and water quality, we indicated in here that if the outcome of first phase indicates that the well may not be suitable as a replacement well, then basically the project needs to sort of be put on hold at that point, like not proceed with the rest of the steps in terms of bringing a water line and a power cable out there. And they would need to go back and I guess discuss what the next steps would be. And it's hard to say what the next steps would be, like if it would be to drill like a second test well in a different location, or what that may be, because it basically it still needs to be connected with a successful well. So that's it's one of those things that's difficult to avoid. I think like there's a good chance that like we're drilling it over near the area where your good well is, where pumping well 1 is, from that area to the west. So we're certainly moving away from to the west, away from pumping well 1, which is over by the plant. And the monitoring wells that Bruce has been monitoring on Edwardson, they've haven't shown elevated ammonia for many, many years, which is positive. But then we don't want to get too far over to the west in case there's any impacts from the landfill, which is just on the other side of the highway. So it's, so yeah, that's something that's just, we have to be aware of, and it's just the nature of this type of project.
So the drilling would proceed as like a pilot hole. You advance a pilot hole, collect the samples, and determine if you have something, and then you'd have to build the well, and then finally, when the well's built, you know what you've got. But I've had situations where, you know, we've advanced a pilot hole, didn't like what we found, and moved over to another spot and tried a second pilot hole. And in some cases, we liked what we found better at the second pilot hole. I've even had cases where we've done the second pilot hole and didn't even like what we saw. So no well was built after 2 pilot holes. But I think in this situation, we got production well 2 is good. We know that the aquifer is intercepted at the monitoring wells along Edwardson Street. So I think somewhere in between PW2 and monitoring the monitoring wells, that's where the production well could go. And in fact, the production well 3, let's call it 3, could go somewhere close to PW2, because the whole thing is just to have 100% redundancy. See, if the pump goes down in PW2, you have the new well, PW3, to turn on. And then you can repair PW2. That's the whole plan. But you don't want it so close that that construction might affect PW2. So I usually like to have the backup well or the alternate well, 10 to 30 meters away.
Yeah.
John, you had a question?
Just a comment, and it's probably to Pat as much as anybody else. That property between the well or the pumping station and the MRF building is owned by the township. That is zoned as commercial industrial, and I believe that's the only commercial industrial zoning we have in the township. So I would hope that if we don't have to put right in the center, in case we ever want to sell that property someday.
It's a good point there, John. So maybe, when we select the spot, it's closer to PW2 than it is to the center of that property, that, handcuffs that whole property.
Yeah, because that's, and maybe like right now, I guess there's like a fairly new access road like through the bush to PW2, and Yeah, and I guess it's a design thing at the time of design, but if we want to extend that access road further to the west to the new PW3, or if you'd want an alternate access off of Edwardson, Edwardson's a township road, right? Not a county road?
Yeah. Yes.
It's a township road, right? Okay.
Go ahead, John.
I have a question around the RFP. What is the schedule, Grant, for completing it and putting it out for replies? And what's the schedule for getting replies and then selecting the winning vendor?
Yeah, we put some dates in there. It's on, I don't know, people have it on page 59 of 79. Now I highlighted some dates. Those were just placeholders because I wasn't sure at this point exactly when it may be issued. Like I indicated, it may be issued in September. That may not happen now. And then like you'd usually have, say, a 3-week bidding period for the engineers. And for this one, we'd want a mandatory site visit. And then like I had award by the end of the year, kickoff meeting in December, and then selecting the site for the drilling and preparing the RFQ for the driller early next year. And then I estimated sort of the amount of to do the work. I figured the construction would probably start in early 2024. Like, I don't know, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, like we'll have to evaluate and select a driller, and driller's availability can be tight sometimes. And so there's the time to do the drilling and the testing to basically validate the new well. So that may take a few months. And then the design for the new system, looking at that, would estimated about, let's see, completion of well, so June, roughly like 6 months for the engineering of all the disciplines for the civil, mechanical, electrical, and the controls and so on to actually connect the well in.
Does that answer your question, John?
Pretty much. The test well and the one where we determine that it's good to go on a first site, or it doesn't have to move to another one. Was that in 2023 or was that out to 2024?
We had that in 2023.
Okay.
We had that like in the spring of 2023.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have an aggressive schedule on here, but then again, it's a well replacement program. We're not, we're just trying to replace PW1. It's not an exploration program that leads to a production well. We know what we want, and it's a replacement program.
Okay.
Any other questions for Grant? John?
Just a comment. It's minor, but on page 7 of 19, just above the yellow portion that you marked, I think it's with thee and with thee. So there's a double with thee at the end of the line. Just a typical typing thing. So
right, okay.
Just thought I'd mention that. And regarding 5.8 project management team, has Pat, has that team been put together?
No, not as yet.
Okay.
There's maybe just a couple other items I could highlight. Greg,
sure,
one of the things with the drilling of the well, the way we've worded this, and if this is acceptable, what this RFP is to do is not to hire the contractor, it's just to hire the engineer to do the design and the well testing and oversee everything. There will be 2 other, I guess, like construction contracts. There'll be one at the beginning to drill the well, like you'll have to hire a licensed well driller. So the way we've written this, if this is okay for the township, is that the engineer that you hire out of this RFP, they will also sort of coordinate, like preparing almost like a small RFP just to drill the well and evaluate bids from drillers. But the engineer wouldn't actually hire the driller directly. They would work under the direction of the engineer, but they would be paid directly by the township. It's just sometimes it's maybe difficult for some consultants if they're hiring and paying a contractor, then they're sort of becoming like a constructor, but they're not the owner or the proponent of the project. So we've worded it that way. And then there'll be sort of the more main construction contract, which would be to connect the well all the way over to the plant and integrate it with all the piping, valves, electrical power supply, all that stuff. There'll be another contract, which this engineer is also going to write, but the township will actually hire and pay for that construction contractor too. So contractually, the way it's worded is the engineer you would hire, they'll be working for the township and paid by the township, providing the full engineering services, and they're going to basically coordinate two contracts themselves. One will be for the well driller at the beginning of the project, and then one will be for like the general construction contractor sort of halfway through. But both of those contractors would be hired and paid by the township, but just work under the direction of the engineer. They would be working on your behalf.
Makes sense.
So I don't have to, that's sort of how we worded it. It's a typical contractual arrangement for this projects of this nature. Hopefully that's, I mean, we have to think about that, but hopefully that's acceptable. It's a fairly typical arrangement. The other highlight here is that when I was describing all the tasks and everything that would be included in the scope of work for this engineer, one of the things when you develop a new well, I assume you probably have a source protection plan that you've prepared some years ago with a source protection committee and the Conservation Authority. So that plan will probably have to be updated. So I indicated that in here. I did not, the way I worded it, I did not include it in this scope just because you may have, I think it's a fairly small task, but it may make more sense to have whoever's been involved with that historically to just update your source protection plan after the new well's put into service.
Okay.
And I believe the source protection's handled with the Conservation Authority. They would, they're the ones who manage it. So they.
Yeah, I thought that sort of made more sense. Yeah. And I think you're in the Lower Trent or the Ganaraska, you're in the Lower Trent?
Lower Trent.
Right, yeah, okay.
Actually, we're fortunate. It's very simple because we really only have the one spot that is under that jurisdiction, and that just happens to be the wells across the whole township, actually.
Right, yeah.
Anything else?
But it could affect, just to add to that, it could affect the wellhead protection area based on topography and whatever else. So obviously it does have to be looked at. So yeah. So just a simple question here, because we've already secured our funding from the federal and provincial governments for this, and our portion that we're going to pay. I listened to all of this and it sounds incredibly costly. So I'm hoping that this is all going to basically come out within the parameters of what we were expecting it to cost, recognizing that inflation is going to have an impact.
Right, yeah, now I guess bear in mind, like the cost for, like when you issue this RFP and you get bids back, it'll be just for the engineering, which I mean, it will still be significant, but the main cost will be the construction, which you won't know until we're pretty far along. Like it won't be till the design is done and you issue a tender, which will be like at least a year from now. And that's sort of where the main costs are.
So depending on what costs are a year from now, which we can't really, we can only guess, but who knows if it's up or down. Usually it's up, right?
Yeah.
But I understand your concerns. We want to make you're muted there, but we want to make sure, hopefully, that we're going to be covered for this. That we're not hanging out on the stick there. That it's going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars over what we thought.
Yeah, and are there certain you know, John asked about the dates here. So like I was sort of assuming this would get issued, you know, fairly soon, you know, in the next month or so. I assume there's probably deadlines for eligibility for your funding. Like, are there any hard deadlines looming that like we need to meet to make sure that we're eligible for the funding?
Pat, you might be able to answer that, could you?
There is, but I believe we're within the time frame. I'd have to look it up, but there is deadlines when we applied for the grant. So,
okay.
So Pat, where do we go from here? Are we taking this now, this proposal, RFP that Grant's prepared and everything? Are we taking this to council and council gives the final okay, or what happens? Where do we go from here?
Typically when we're charged with sending it an RFP, we don't take it before council. We can, there's no reason why we can't. But the sooner we can get moving on it and get it out, the sooner we can get the bids to come back in and get started on the project. So,
okay, well,
I think it was the water committee
that. If it's not standard to bring it before council, then let's not add that step. I mean, if it comes here from the water committee and Grant and Bruce and them are happy with our experts and everything, that the RFP is good and everything, then we put it out and we can mention it to council.
Yes, I would suggest that in the report to council on October the 6th, that we'll mention that the RFP has been reviewed by the water committee and that staff have been given direction to proceed. So,
okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments, Grant?
I guess the yeah, Bruce, I got some really good input from Bruce on this, particularly with the initial stages of the project, you know, with the well drilling and testing. And I don't know, had anyone from Lucy looked at this, like any comments or anything? I'll fix those typos that John Logal had mentioned. Is it worth, like, because, you know, lakefront operators, they're going to be assuming this once it's built. I don't know if Larry, Adam, if you had a chance to look at it, or if you wanted to send any comments along.
Yeah, I had one, yeah, Grant, and it's on 3.2.11, task 11, the control system programming. It says here that the township will provide the templates for the O&I checks, the I&O checks. The last line here in, yeah.
Okay, that's on page 9 of 19.
Yeah, 9 of 19 there, about a third of the way down.
Oh, okay, yeah, that area, is that look val? I'm not that familiar with like your existing SCADA system.
Yeah,
like some of it is fairly general.
We'll have WSP look at that there and be able to, whoever the contractor is or the consultant, work with that to make sure that everything is lines up for the current SCADA system. Right. Okay. So that line in the township, should I change that to lakefront, or should I take that out, or is it okay as is? I think we'll just leave it okay as is the township, and then we'll just provide that through WSP. Right. Okay. Like they're your integrator. That's right. They'll be the ones that'll be doing the integrating. Okay, that's fine. And what we could do is, we've seen this in projects before, that like with SCADA integration, because it's very specific, like we could stipulate a name of a company in here. Like we don't have to, but sometimes that's cheaper than having that component be competitive. I've done that with RFPs in the north. Your integrator, and sorry. Yeah, I've done that in the north with RFPs, where we used a certain integrator and all that, and we put it in there that they must use them instead of bringing somebody else, because somebody will want to change. At least you're bringing somebody who knows the system. You're saying use this integrator for it. I'd be happy with if you put WSP in there. That way we know what we're going to get, and somebody's not trying to sell us something else that we find out that we have to change later. because we're, we may not need a whole complete system because we just upgraded some of the SCADA stuff in there in the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah. And I would think like it shouldn't be much of a change. Like the existing pumping well 1 is in your SCADA system. It's just turned off, right?
Yeah.
So, in theory, it should be a pretty seamless change.
But you never know.
But you never know. But yeah, I mean, the computer system's not going to know the well is a bit further into the bush. But
which well it is. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, we can.
We could take that off by talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, very nice report, Grant. Very detailed. Thank you. And I guess, Pat, do we need a motion then from the Water Committee that we go ahead and finish off this RFP and it get posted whenever it's possible, that Grant and Bruce and them and Lucy is happy with everything, that it gets done?
Yes, please.
So who would like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Grit, you had your hand, and then John, you can second it, but you were muted there, Grit.
Sorry, Councillor.
I had my hand.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Yolanda.
I know that before we started discussing this, I believe you read. Did we have a motion already written in there?
No, not.
We didn't.
No, because we had further direction required, and I asked Pat where we're going, and then it went to Grant.
Right. So we didn't. Yes, you're right. We didn't have a mover or seconder. Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem. So the motion made by Grit and seconded by John, and Pat, I guess you can, as you always do your magic, you can write the motion so that it's basically saying that the RFP be completed and posted.
Yes. So
do we want to put a date on that? Sooner the better, but I don't know.
Sooner the better.
October 15th or something like that, or sooner the better, whatever.
I guess that's up to you, Grant and Bruce and Lucy, and that. Are you okay with it being as soon as possible? Like, could you give us a date that we could look at, that's reasonable?
Sure. Well, I guess, if I don't know, Bruce or Larry or Adam had any comments or a chance to look through it. The edits we talked about here are pretty minor. Like, I could have it back to you by Monday. But I don't know if the others want to look through it a bit more thoroughly, just to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
There's a bit more to go into the document too. There's the standard township insurance requirements, and I think other items, and just.
So are we looking at September or early October? Go ahead, Pat.
I would just suggest that it be early October, just because the township too is involved with elections, and we've got huge mailings to go out next week. So if we
I didn't know that.
No, okay. So if we could just say the first part of October, then we'll aim to get it out then. And
you're okay with that, Grit and John?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. We want to make sure if we're going to do it, we do it right. And I'm sure a couple of weeks is not going to make a difference. And that, like you said, Grant, gives Lucy and Bruce a chance to give a final read over if they're happy with everything and they don't see anything that needs to be adjusted.
Sure.
Okay, so all in favor of that? Passed. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Grant, for the discussion.
You're welcome.
Learned a lot. If I ever want to put a well in, again, not. Okay, new business for future discussion. Is there anybody has any new business to bring up? Nothing? No new business? Okay, and then we are going to a motion to recess to closed session. So that the Grafton Communal Water Committee of the Township of A&H be recessing to a closed session under section 239 to consider either a personnel matter about an identified individual, including municipal or local board employees, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. We don't have the CAO, but it will be the acting clerk, and Yolanda's in it too, right, Pat? Yeah. And it's just going to be the members of the committee, right? Okay.
Yes.
Can I get that? Do we need a mover for that, Pat?
Yes, please.
Okay, so can I get a mover for that, please? John Logo and Mike will second. All in favor? Okay, passed. Thank you very much, everybody else that doesn't want to attend a closed meeting. And Yolanda. Okay, be it resolved that the Grafton Communal Water Committee of the Township of A&H adjourn the closed meeting at 4:49 p.m. and reconvene to the Grafton Communal Water Committee meeting. And I need a mover, right? A mover? Mike, seconder, JR, all in favor? Okay. So number 11, the next meeting is October the 19th via Zoom. And sorry to say that that will probably be the last meeting for this group altogether, because it will probably change due to the elections. That'll be our last meeting for sure with Mike, right?
Yes.
Because our next one, Yolanda, will be December, right? And he'll be somewhere sunny.
Maybe not then. Well, actually, I will be in December, you're right.
But we'll leave it till October, and then we'll say our final goodbye. So the next one's October the 19th. And I don't know if there's any other concerns with that meeting or not. No. Let's have a motion to adjourn. Be it resolved that the Grafton Communal Water Committee adjourn at 4:50. Can I have a mover? Grit, seconder, Mike. All in favor? Done. Thank you very much, everybody.
Greg,
thank you for your comments and everything. Yeah, go ahead, JR.
The RFP that's still being added to, will it be a revised one sent out before the October 19th meeting?
Would that be possible, please, Pat, that we could have, it's going to go, we've given permission for it to go, but you wanted a copy, John, like sent to you so you can look it over?
Yeah, me too. You know, if it does go out, can we get the one that goes out? I'd like to see the, you know, the revised one.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, no problem. So Pat and Yolanda can arrange that, John. Yep, it's sent out to everybody so that we can see.
That'd be great.
Okay, that's a good point.